Today's episode is brought to you by Diane Kinlaw of Go Prime Mortgage and Jamie Tulak of eXp Realty.
When I went to Chicago, being invited to come to the board meeting because my name, I've been with the company for about 2 months. I'm thinking, the chair of General Wood, the chair of Sears Roebuck. I'm invited to come to Chicago.
Now, your name is the same as the founders, like first and last.
Right. And well, to that point, I was so excited about becoming co-chair of the whole company. I went back to my one suit I told you about earlier. And I walked in the door of this massive room, and General Wood was down at the end. And I said, "I'm here. Hi, everybody." And General Wood looks at me and he goes, I thought, I wanted to make sure that everything was properly zipped up. And so I said, "Is there something wrong?" He said, "No." He said, "Just turn around and look." I should have brought that with me, I didn't. The picture of the founder, Richard Warren Sears, was on the back wall, painting. We were identical twins. Wow. And it even scared me.
You're like, why do you have a painting of me up here?
Exactly. So a lot of this is an attitude. And the attitude is, you got to like what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You got to understand what you're doing. You got to have a plan of what you're doing. And then make it like one of my friends did in Holly Springs, and you've interviewed her before, Beth. Make it your happy place.
Yeah.
And she did. And that is so important, that if you don't like it, you don't like what you're doing, it'll show.
Right.
It'll show with your employees or your associates. I prefer associates over employees. Treat them with respect. Treat your customer with respect.
Thank you for listening to the Guys Who Do Stuff podcast. Visit guyswhodostuff.com. You probably shouldn't Google that.
Welcome to the Guys Who Do Stuff podcast. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jose.
This is the show where we help you get unstuck, tell a better story, and have a good answer to the question, what are you doing today? And today in the studio, very excited to welcome the mayor of Holly Springs, Dick Sears.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
It's so exciting to talk to you. We were talking a little bit before the show. There's just so much to jump into. As you know, this show is for business owners and entrepreneurs and things like that. And you have 3 exciting things that I can't wait to dive into. One, you spent a long time at Sears.
35 years.
And then you now currently have a consulting company.
That's been about 20 years.
About 20 years. And you've been the mayor of Holly Springs for?
18 and a half years.
So there's a lot of overlap there, I'm sure.
Well, I'm old.
My last name is Woolworth, and people ask me often, are any relation to the bankrupt company with no money? And I tell them no. Your last name is Sears, and you spent 36 years at Sears.
That is correct. I was at Purdue University, West Lafayette, Indiana, and getting ready to graduate. And I'm going to be a pharmaceutical person, doing all kinds of great things with Merck. And a friend of mine who actually worked in the service station at Sears Roebuck at West Lafayette said, "With your name, why don't you come down and ask for a job?" And I said, "No, I'm really not interested." He says, "I dare you." And of course, that was in the days, and still do, where it was dare and then double dare. So I came down in jeans, sweatshirt, and dirty white tennis shoes with a butch haircut.
Just like today.
Just like today. Only the haircut's different. I walked into the personnel office, and Mrs. Datsman, who was about 6'8", but very proper, said, "Hello, what can I do for you?" And I said, "I'm looking for a job." She says, she looks me over and said, well, we're not hiring right now, but if you care to fill this form out, we'll call you when we have an opening. I said, "Fine. All right, I'm out of here." So I filled it in, and 2 things happened. I put couple things down that also the store manager was like a Eagle Scout and sold Fuller brushes. So she said, "You're not any relation to our founder, are you?" I said, "Yes, I'm related. I'm a cousin." "Oh my, perhaps you should speak to Mr. O'Connor." Well, long story short, after about an hour and a half in his office meeting everybody in the store, she said, "Today is Tuesday. Would you like to start as early as Thursday?" I thought, I didn't know what to say. So I said, yes, okay, fine. I wound up on the rear dock. I brought my only suit in. But my first job, in those days, Sears had a trainee situation, which I really think is still great, but nobody does anymore, where you had to do everything. I mean, everything. So I said, I came in her office, and I said, I'm ready. I got my one suit on, cotton poplin, with a tie. And she said, you're just a little bit overdressed for this first assignment. And I said, well, what is it? Rear dock. His name is Mr. Tool. Oh, okay. So I go back to rear dock, and there's a truck of paint. My job was to get the paint off the truck and put it inside on the stockrooms. And after that, 35 years later, I retired from Sears.
And what position did you retire in?
My highest position was, and I get a little bit of ring on this, some of my friends at Holly Springs, I was the National Retail Marketing Manager for women's apparel and accessories at Sears Roebuck.
Woohoo!
$2.5 billion worth of business.
Wow.
Man.
So I learned a little bit there too.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right on.
And what was your favorite of all the jobs you got to try?
Probably that one, because the boss, the big guy, said, Dick, we need somebody to have a clothing line at Sears. Go out and get the most respectable woman in the world. And I said, what's my limitations? He said, Richard. I said, go out and hire her. So we did our marketing study, which we did marketing studies on everything. What time do you want to get up in the morning? We'll do a marketing study. So the next thing happened, we did ours, and guess who came in first? This is a long time ago. Golda Meir from Israel.
Wow.
Now, knowing Golda Meir from a distance, this is not necessarily the one you would pick for a clothing line. So the boss said, who came in second? I said, Cheryl Tiggs. He says, hire her. Yeah. I said, okay. And I did. And for the next year and a half, favorite, we traveled all over the country with 13 models and did fashion shows. And I was the one who did the fashion show with the microphone, and they did all the work. And I loved every second of it.
Wow. And so she developed her own clothing line from Sears?
She did, and it was very successful. We did magazine, we did radio, we did TV, we did the whole 9 yards. And I think the line did 35 or 6 million in a year and a half. And she got at least $1 million out of that.
Wow.
Now, I got the same pay, so I didn't get any override. But she was a pleasant, just a great person to work with. And she was from Minnesota, and her parents were from Minnesota, and they were wonderful people.
Yeah.
As she was too.
That's fantastic. And so you must have picked up a ton. You said you did a lot of market research. And so then you started a consulting company, I assume, after Sears?
Yes. In 95, when I retired, I decided we would do a business and marketing consulting company called the Gray Group, Gray. And that was because if you didn't have gray hair, you couldn't play. And my thought process was that there's so many people, especially from Sears, who were asked to retire early or did retire early or just retired. And they've got all this knowledge. And I think the country at that time was thinking, oh, these people are gone. I mean, they're done. They're over. And I had like 18 at that one time. It was former Sears people and others who had a background in marketing or business, and they were wonderful. Now, of course, things have changed. Most of them have gone elsewhere or gone. And now we have just me and a couple other people. But we're still doing it.
Right.
And I still, once in a while, will get a job. Recently I did. My favorite story about that, however, in marketing, was a company in New York City who made jewelry, and they were big, one of the biggest makers, said, Dick, my business all of a sudden took a nosedive, and I don't know why. Is that something you'd like to try to do? I said, you bet. So that was one of my favorite things to do is if you're struggling as a company, find out why, and then communicate. So I started calling every store in his chain, and they all said the same thing. Have you met his brother? And I said, no. I said, is he new? Yep, he's fairly new, and he's terrible. We don't like him at all. And I tell you, we're thinking about just closing the whole line. So after about 2 or 3 weeks of calling, mostly calling, once in a while visiting. I wrote up the recommendation. I said, among other things, there's a few other things. I said, what you should do is strongly consider firing your brother. And he said, that's a tough thing to say.
Right. That's not an easy conversation to have with somebody.
No. And he said, I wondered about that. I said, yeah, nobody likes him, and they don't like you because of that. He said, I'll fire him. Next day, he fired him. I went back and said, I'll do a recall on this, and it will take about 2 weeks. Everyone I talked to, same thing. We're back. We're in business. Everything's fine.
Wow.
So one person who didn't listen to the customer was the cause of his almost going down the tubes.
Wow.
One thing. So listen to your customer out there.
Yeah, that's a strong point. Now, what was the time that you were working in marketing at Sears with around the time you were launching the clothing line? What time was that? What year?
Oh, Wally, I think it was AD for starters. It was 1971.
Okay. All right. So this is kind of like right around the time when all the big marketing firms were kind of in their heyday then, right?
Right.
That's an exciting time to be in marketing.
Well, it was, and at that point in time, we opened a company in Barrington, Illinois, and that's where we started. And, of course, I knew a lot of people from there, from Sears, who had been with Sears. And we were all over the country. And again, the main things I learned from that, Sears Roebuck had something that went very well for many, many years, and then they blew it, in my opinion. And that was satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. And I had guys come in the store, which if you knew the whole story, you know they were fibbing to you.
Right.
But we always did it. We always gave them their money back or gave them a product.
My dad would only buy his tools from Sears for that reason.
And the Craftsman tools were guaranteed forever. Forever.
He wouldn't buy a tool from anywhere else. And if he did, he was like, oh, man.
I know.
A pinch.
And the Craftsman tool, it's still around, but Sears is, pretty much gone.
Yeah.
And what happened there was, and this is another, I think, good story for any business, the person who runs a business got to be in that business, not somebody else's business. And the current chairman is a real estate flipper. And that upset me immensely when they hired him. And I knew we were going to go down the tubes.
Right.
Sears was a great company in the 80s and early 90s, and then just went down because a company usually reflects so much the person or persons who run that company. If you have one person on that's it. But if you have like 20 or 30 or maybe 10 even, whoever runs the company, be enthusiastic, be wanting to help in the job, listen to the customer, find out what they want, and then if you can make it or build it, then you do it.
Right.
And then the next thing is have a plan so you know either how to advertise it or how to market it. What we did when we first moved here before coming to the Merdum was another gentleman and I from L.A. did seminars here, kind of like what you're doing in a way. And the seminar was, if you have a great idea or a great product but don't know what to do with it, come to our seminar.
Okay.
And without being demeaning, because it's not that point, we talked to probably 100 people who had great ideas, great products, a whole line of things. And as soon as you said, what's your marketing plan? Deer in the headlights. Pardon me? What's a marketing plan? I said, that's why you're here. And then we would help them develop a marketing plan or a business plan, but you have to put it down on paper so you know what you're doing.
Right. I always get fascinated with the way that companies who have a founder has a strong vision, and a lot of that company is because of that founder's vision.
Correct.
And you were at a company like that with Sears. And then so many companies, when the founder steps down, or it's not somebody in the family, or you don't have the same thing driving it, like you were telling us about Sears.
Correct.
So what do you think are some things that founders should do as far as their exit strategy for when they realize that it's time to hand the reins over?
If you're in a company that sells product, you ought to make sure that the person who is going to be in that job understands how to sell a product. Also, even most importantly, I went through 4 or 5 chairmans in that time. every one of them was terrific except, as I say, the last one. And before that, they were merchants. The first one I went through was General Wood when I got to tell you the story. When I went to Chicago, being invited to come to the board meeting because my name, I've been with the company for about 2 months. And I'm thinking, the chairs of General Wood, the chair of Sears Roebuck. I'm invited to come to Chicago. Whew.
Now your name is the same as the founders, like first and
last.
Right.
And well, to that point, I was so excited about becoming co-chair of the whole company. I went back to my one suit I told you about earlier. And I walked in the door of this massive room, and General Wood was down at the end. And I said, I'm here. Hi, everybody. And General Wood looks at me and he goes, I thought, I wanted to make sure that everything was properly zipped up. And so I said, is there something wrong? He said, no. He said, just turn around and look. I should have brought it with me, but I didn't. The picture of the founder, Richard Warren Sears, was on the back wall painting. We were identical twins. Wow. And it even scared me.
You're like, why do you have a painting of me up here?
Exactly. So a lot of this is an attitude. And the attitude is, you got to like what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You got to understand what you're doing. You got to have a plan of what you're doing. And then make it like one of my friends did in Holly Springs, and you've interviewed her before, Beth. Make it your happy place.
Yeah.
And she did. And that is so important, that if you don't like it, you don't like what you're doing, it'll show.
Right.
It'll show with your employees or your associates. I prefer associates over employees. Treat them with respect. Treat your customer with respect. And to give you an example of why I'm saying that, make it real quick. I had a gentleman come in one day, West Lafayette, Indiana, B store, which is not the biggest, and had a Ted Williams fishing pole. And it was snapped in two beautifully. Mm-hmm. And I know darn well he had it in the trunk.
Not from fishing.
No. They said, Dick, he said, I want another pole. I said, well, why is that? He said, well, this one broke while I was catching a big fish. I said, really? So I said, let me have the pole. I took the pole, I went like this, I turned it sideways, and it splinters, fiberglass splinters.
Right.
I said, well, usually when you break a pole like this, unless, of course, it was in the trunk, and he turned all red, I said, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you another pole, which I did, because it was the right thing to do at the time. The gentleman comes back in about 3 or 4 weeks, and he said, Dick, he said, I hear you having a boat sale. I said, yes, sir. Boat motor trailer? Yes, sir. What's your best? This is the guy in the farm outfit with the engineer's hat and had an aroma that would react to a farmhand type thing.
Right.
I said, well, the Scott Atwater motor and the 18-foot, blah, 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 blah. He said, I want it. I said, okay. I said, how are you going to pay for it? You want an easy pay? You know, one of those where you pay a couple $1 a day for the rest of your life?
Right.
He said, I don't do credit. I said, okay. And I think it was about $5,000, something like that. And this goes back to 62 or 3. And he pulls out a wad of $100 bills out of his pocket and starts reeling them off. And I helped him put the boat on his truck. So I guess it's just an example of the attitude that I was taught of how to take care of the customer.
Right.
And it just shows you that I did something that didn't have to do. I could tell him to go home because I knew dang well it was in the trunk. They broke it.
Right.
But I didn't. And it didn't cost Sears anything. As a matter of fact, it made Sears a lot richer at the time because he bought the boat motor trailer and then became a good customer.
If you treat somebody like they're going to be a customer for life, they might just be a customer for life.
Yeah.
And if you think about everything just in terms of just the one transaction instead of thinking it as a bit more of a long game, you could end up losing a lot of money. And
absolutely,
that man came back to you for a reason specifically.
Yeah, because I let him have a free pool. But no, it was good. That's harder to do sometimes than you think, because as you work for a large company, and this is probably even true with smaller companies, you have a feeling that everything there is part of you. Mm. And do I give this guy a free pull out of my money? It's not your money. It's the company's money, and that's a big distinction. As mayor, we have people who will ask the question, who do I work for? Who do I report to? I said, there's a difference. Reporting to is one thing. Working for is maybe something else. And that is this. Who pays your bill? Who pays your salary?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the town does. Who pays the town? People who live in the town, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, you work for the people who pay the bills. And I always believed that at Sears too. So it wasn't one of those things where I'm Sears Roebuck. I can do anything. Nobody tells me what to do. It wasn't that at all. It was just, let's work for the customer. And for Sears Roebuck, it worked for many, many years, and then it stopped working when we got our flipper. I'm overdoing that point, but you can't have a real estate flipper running a marketing company. And that's what happened at Monkey Ward's, Woolworth, where you were. A lot of companies go down the tubes because the leader of the pack lost sight of why they're there.
Right.
Or that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Or they didn't have a replacement. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd never been in a company like you have in Sears,
right,
where there was a training program that had you do all the jobs.
Correct.
It seems like that's a lost art nowadays. And there's even a show about it that's like, it's like a novel idea, that Undercover Boss, like where the guy in charge of the company will actually go do some of the jobs. And it's so novel now that it's a TV show. Like, oh, can you believe it? The guy from the gas station who owns the gas station worked at a gas station. It's so crazy.
He pumped the gas. Excuse me. It's true. What I find is that at Sears Roebuck, when we were there at that point in time, this goes back to 1959. That's AD, 59. I always have to prove that point. I learned that when you become a trainee, and we had about 12 or 13 trainees in our store. We were one of the stores in Sears Roebuck that had trainees, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And that's why I started unloading paint. That was part of the whole premise. And then the boss gave me some good advice that I never will forget. He said, Dick, he said, if you want to succeed in this store or with this company, know the janitor. And I thought, well, that's a strange thing to say, know the janitor. I found out later why he said that. I had inherited from the former menswear manager about 5 huge boxes of flannel shirts. They had been in the top of the stock room forever.
Mm-hmm.
They were starting to get very bad, fading, moths, the whole thing. And there's no way to do this unless you burn them or something. So I just talked to our janitor, and I became friends with him. And he said, "How are you doing?" I said, "Well, things are good." But I said, "I don't know what to do with those flannel shirts up there. They're all bad and blah, blah." And there must have been $500 or $600 worth, at least.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say anything. The next day, I walked in the stock room. They aren't up there anymore. They're gone. And I said, "Art, what happened to my shirts?" He said, "I made a mistake. I burned them. I've already talked to the boss. We're taking a store markdown on them." I goes, "All right." Now we know why. I learned at that point in time to treat everybody in the company at any level with the same degree of respect.
Right.
And once you do that, then the other ones who are thinking, well, here's this young whippersnapper coming in from Purdue telling me, and I've been to Sears for 40 years, telling me how to do things. I didn't tell him. I made some suggestions. Once you go through the janitor, it worked. It worked.
Did you find that your name helped or hurt when it came to relating with the rest of the associates at Sears?
Never been asked that question. I would say overall it helped. Once in a while, if I would get the best room in a hotel and the CEO would get the second best room, that probably didn't help. The Beverly Wilshire Hotel in L.A., I had the Guadalajara suite. They're number one. It was, and this is that's about 74. It was $500 a night then.
Wow.
And the CEO got a room down the hall a little bit.
That's the price of the boat.
At least. So I called the maitre d', if you want. I said, Hernando Cartwright. See, I remember these things. Hernando, I said, I just looked at my door last night, and I love the room. I love the dining room. I love the 2 sitting rooms. I love the 2 bathrooms. I love the marquee out front for my patio with the palm trees. It's great. But $500 a night, Hernando, that's way over. He said, no. He says, I've already read your rules and regulations at Sears. He says, your limit is $50 a night, right? I said, yes. He said, $50 a night.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So I got that room for $50 a night and had it for a week, and it you kind of beat it.
I thought you were going to say, and I stayed for 12 months.
If I could have stayed, Joe, for 12 months, I probably would have. I'd still be there, maybe.
So how did you get from the frozen tundra known as the Midwest here down to North Carolina?
Great question. I've been asked that one before. We decided after 30 years with Sears that it's time to retire.
Mm-hmm.
So I did. Then we talked about where do we want to retire to. North Carolina came up because I had friends across the street that lived there and we're going back. South Carolina, Tennessee, I think that was the 3 we kind of narrowed it down to.
Mm-hmm.
We went to South Carolina, wasn't totally happy. I liked one in Tennessee. She didn't, that kind of thing. I liked the mountains. She liked the shore here. That didn't work. So we took a map out one night. It's a true story. Took a map out one night. And I said, okay, you want the shore. I want the mountains. We click in the center and see where we are. Raleigh. So I said to Molly, who was an RN at that time, well, still is, of course, but not working, and also a real estate agent. I said, do you know anybody in the real estate business in Raleigh?
Mm-hmm.
No, but I'll find out. The call back was from Ginger Rogers. Not but...
I was going to say,
no,
what is she doing selling real estate?
Not the... And her husband's name was Richard Rogers. And we told him, she said, well, what kind of place are you looking for? We want a small town that has a lot of possibilities for growth in the future, nice, people welcoming, a good location strategically,
mm-hmm.
maybe like in the center or something. Well, she said, you've only got one choice. I said, really? What is it? It's a town called Holly Springs. Right now, they're about, I think in that time it was about 2,000 people.
1,000. I read on the website.
Was it 1,000?
Yeah.
In 1990. Yeah.
So we came, we looked, we liked. The golf course had already been built.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't much else in the whole place.
Right.
So as we went along, I had to go to Cary for everything. Now, I'm not having anything against Cary. The mayor and I are good friends. However, I got tired of it.
It's a long drive.
It's a long drive. Like
it's today. We're one of the 2 cities, Cary and Holly Springs. There's a couple commutes in the triangle that there's just no good roads yet. And there's just no good way to get from Holly Springs to Cary quickly.
No. I think when I-540 completes the circle, there may be some places in Cary I get to faster than that. But anyway, so what happened was Molly said, I want a jar of strawberry preserves. I thought, Food Lion. It was not good then. It's good now. So all your friends in Food Lion, that's okay. I went down to Food Lion, got the jar, went back home, and Molly said, we lived in Devil's Ridge, said, that was a quick trip. I said, yeah, I'm getting good at this. I lied. So I opened the jar. It didn't pop. I looked at the paraffin. It was separated, and the odor was incredible. So I called the Board of Health, which I should have done, which I did. They came down and cleaned the store out pretty good. And I said to myself, I'm going to try to find a way to help build a town where you don't have to leave unless you want to. Therein lies a lot of help I've had on that concept. And today, once our hospital, which is going to open in July, not this July, next July,
right?
7 stories, top of the line, everything. We're just about there.
Yeah.
Just about there. We have just about everything that we want or need.
I love that. So the idea was I'm going to help build a town that you don't want to have to leave unless you want to.
Yes. And I can make stories about how green that is, how wonderful you don't have the pollution, how the traffic. And the other thing I've learned is if you grow fast, 2 things happen. One, you get more traffic, and
Right.
I get my fair share of comments about traffic. And then I tell them that the DOT did a study at our request. 7 out of 10 cars that go through Holly Springs, so right in the middle of everything, are from out of town. Well, that helps a little bit, but not a whole lot. And also, prices of land go up this way.
Right.
Zingo. That's from growth. If you have a house, like some of our friends do, that's been there for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say you paid, pick a number, $15,000 for it, it's now worth about $50,000 or $60,000.
Yeah.
So for them, this is good. For somebody coming in and wanting to buy something, it's not quite so good.
Right.
But I'm happy where we are.
Our title sponsors for this show are Diane Kinlaw and Jamie Tulak. Whether you're looking to purchase a new home or wish to refinance, why not seek the counsel of a friend who happens to know the Triangle housing market better than the back of her hand? As your local lender, Diane Kinlaw knows how important this area is to you because it's her home too. That's why she's made it a goal not to just be the best loan officer around, but a community leader supporting small businesses with referrals and networking events and supporting local charities with frequent fundraisers. If you're looking to move to Holly Springs or the surrounding area, or maybe interested in a refinance to lower your term or rate, Diane offers a wide array of programs to fit your family's needs. Let her be a part of your path home. A home doesn't have to be a dream. Let Diane make it a reality. You can contact us at www.goprime.com and search for Diane or call 919-624-9541. GoPrime Mortgage Incorporated Company, NMLS number 69551. Diane Kinlaw, NMLS number 1600777. GoPrime is an equal housing opportunity lender. Today's show sponsor, Jamie Tulak of eXp Realty, has a passion for serving clients and nearly a decade of industry experience as a top producing realtor and designer. Jamie Tulak of eXp Realty will help you reach your real estate goals. Whether you're buying, selling, investing, or renting in today's market, having an experienced real estate expert working for you is crucial. And don't forget to ask her about her Hometown Heroes credit for military, police, firefighters, teachers, and medical providers. Contact Jamie Tulak today at 559-707-1913. That's 559-707-1913. MRP certified. Have you guys started to get to the point as a town yet where people are buying some of the older properties to demo them and put new properties on top of them yet?
We've already done that. We did it about 10 years ago. We called it Operation Jericho. I swear to you, Operation Jericho. And the walls came tumbling down.
Right, the city collapses.
Yes. We had probably, and again, not to be demeaning, we probably had 40 to 50 what we would call nicely shacks.
Mm-hmm.
And two things can do that. You can do eminent domain, which I don't like. And
Right.
we don't do. We've only done it once on a very small area. So we would go into a house and say, I know you paid $10,000 for this house 25, 30 years ago. We would like to offer you $50,000 if you could find a house to move, or 100 even. You had to do each one separately.
Right.
We have 40 less shacks.
Wow.
We probably now have maybe a dozen. But even then, with those that can't afford anything, you make them an offer for their house. Or the last case was one on Bass Lake Road, where our guys go out and say, we can help you try to get outside help, charity perhaps, to get this fixed and this fixed and this fixed if you want to stay there.
Yeah.
And that worked real well. I never got a complaint from anybody who went from 10 to 50 or 10 to 80 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened was you took the bulldozer, you make the house go away, you clean up the lot, and then you sell it to somebody coming in who want a smaller lot.
Right.
We're still doing that.
So out of all in Holly Springs has added so much. What, as the mayor, are you the most proud of getting to see added to the city, to the town?
Wow. There's so much. Probably two things. We had one school. Now we have 5 or 6. Depending on how you want to do it. Proud of that. However, the hospital is probably the proudest. It took 10 long years, and people who have been involved in this understand what I'm saying, to get a certificate of need to build that hospital. 10 years.
10 years to convince people that you needed a hospital.
Something like that.
What's the current population of Holly Springs right now?
We're about 43,000.
43,000. Okay.
And the last time somebody made a comment,
it seemed like shouldn't be a hard pitch. We have 43,000 people. We would like a hospital.
Well, the deal was, and I would ask that. I said, why can't the state approve the hospital? Well, you got to go through this process because if you don't, then the hospitals are going to come into a town and have 4 or 5 hospitals and blah, blah. I said, that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. So anyway, that process, I'm not a big fan of certificates of need, but we got it. And it will be 7 stories. It will have everything. It'll be Rex. It'll have everything in it except Heart, and Heart will be still downtown because that place downtown in Raleigh, the Heart Hospital is incredible in every way. And it's bigger than the hospital before it, right next door to it.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. All the right equipment, great doctors, this and that. So we'll have the rest of it in Holly Springs.
Yeah.
Now, if you have to leave, guess what? We have something called a helicopter that could pick you up and take you back downtown.
Yeah.
Or an ambulance or whatever.
And I imagine the town has to be very excited. Tons of quality jobs come in when a hospital comes in.
Quality jobs. Doctors are already lining up wanting to be part of the hospital right now today. We're working also on, I guess we're going to call it affordable housing, where there's a major part of the population in any town that really can't afford to live there.
Sure.
And we have that. I'm not talking Section 8. I'm talking about smaller houses, people who can build a home for sell under $200,000.
Somebody that might get a job as a janitor in the hospital might have a hard time affording a home.
Right now today
right.
would be that exact situation where they might have to live in Angier or Harnett County and drive in every day. We still have some of that. Mm-hmm. It also includes policemen, firemen,
right,
et cetera.
Teachers.
Who don't like, yeah, exactly. So we're working on that. There's a little bit of convincing to do with some of our friends, but we've talked to a couple developers. I asked one of them if they could still do a house like Sears Roebuck did,
right,
where you would write into Richard Warren Sears and say, I want the bungalow. It's $3,800. And it was on a train the next day in pieces, and they put it together like a puzzle.
Wow.
And we still have one in Holly Springs. It's beautiful.
Huh.
It looks like it's brand new.
And somebody ordered the house from Sears Roebuck and Company.
And they brought it down and put it together in Barrington.
Wow.
And we also are in Barrington, in Holly Springs, but we also had one in Barrington too. Barrington, Illinois, where we came in from.
Right.
So it's a wild business. Again, I just got to make the same comment. Have a plan, put shall we say, a timeline on it,
right,
of what you want to do. Make sure that it's the customer oriented. It's not what you want; it's what the customer wants. Mm-hmm. And put it together, and then have fun. And my boss in Sears used to say, I used to love him, still do. Dick, do something and have fun. I like that philosophy.
Yeah,
and I try to permeate that through the town too, because we have some wonderful associates, not employees, associates. And we recognized them just last week. We have 5-year members. We have 10. We have 20. Now I have 15. We have 20. And we also have 130.
Wow.
That tells a story.
Yeah.
By itself.
So tell me a little bit why you like associate versus employee.
I think it's employee is a tired word, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Employee kind of implies, again, you work for me.
Right.
You're my employee.
It's a little pejorative. Like,
something like that.
Yeah.
So if I say, Joe, you're an employee, that's one thing. If I say, Joe, you're an associate of mine, that's a whole different philosophy. And I just don't like the idea of I work for, I have to do this, I have to do that. It's a team.
Right.
It's a team type of concept. So associate, I like better than employees.
It's about how you treat people.
Treat everybody with respect. One thing that we try to do is to take the departments that don't get much accommodations and don't get much, let's say, congratulations from the local.
Sure.
Whatever.
There's probably some departments in the city that are less, sexy than others.
Yeah, well,
they don't get as much credit. They don't get talked about as much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the point. And I'm thinking of the Public Works Department. Mm-hmm. I still remember I'll never forget this. I still remember the last time we had a big snowfall. WRAL's got their little pocket cam out on the front window.
Right. Driving around in there.
We're in Apex. The roads are terrible. Don't drive slow up. Whoop. Wait a minute. The roads here are clean. We must be in Holly Springs. Oh, now the roads are bad again. We're back to Fuquay. I'm not demeaning either one of those towns. I'm just proud of our guys who are the best in the West, which I've always said at any one of our meetings, that you guys, Public Works, you don't get any better. And I can say that for a lot of different departments, but particularly them because, to you say, they're not exposed too much to the whole public. They work day and night everywhere else. Mm-hmm. And I think just to say thank you every now and then makes a big difference to them. And it's not personal. It's true.
Right. Yeah. Without them, our lives would be a mess.
Yeah. And then some. And
Literally.
then some.
Yeah.
And as I say, when it snows or is icy, just drive in Holly Springs.
Everything else is closed.
That's right.
Come on up. So do you feel like what you learned in your career before you became a mayor about marketing translates to being a good public servant? Are there any things that you see kind of correlate between?
Yeah, I think you look at the plan, you look at where you want to be, when and how and why, how to get there. You also have to know your product, know what it is, know why it is. Mm-hmm. When I was the sporting goods manager in West Lafayette store, and my wife reminds me of this even to this day, I used to buy everything. Everything they sold. Golf clubs, fishing poles,
right,
tennis rackets, you name it. I had them. So I could know the product. So someone would come in, and this always worked except once, I got to tell you this.
Did the same apply with the women's clothing department?
That's why I get the problem with this when I tell her I get the little hand. Oh, never mind. So it worked well, and I had a woman come in with her little boy, and he wanted a BB gun. And I said, ma'am, this is a Daisy. Click, 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 on this thing. She said, I don't want him to have one. But tell me how safe they are. I said, here's this. I went through the whole safety routine, told him this, told him that. And I said, now you never point the gun at anything you don't want to shoot at. Always point it either down the ground or up in the air. So I pointed up in the air like this, mm-hmm. pulled the trigger, and some little brat apparently had taken the inside and unloosened it on the top. The whole inside went up in the ceiling, hit the huge light up there. We had light coming down, glass coming down everywhere. And the mother looked at me and said, I told you, son, you're not going to have one of these BB guns.
Oh, gosh.
I lost a sale.
And scarred that poor boy's life.
Forever.
He never got a BB gun.
Never got a gun.
I never saw him again, so I don't think they ever came back to the store.
Great stories.
But know the product.
Right.
Know the product. And be proud of your product. Know how to sell it. It's always a selling game. Always has been, always will be. Sales, sales, sales. There are people who pound things at you when they sell. There are things that people talk to that say, you should have this or have that. Or say, well, let me tell you about what I got. And let me tell you why I think you'll be going to be interested. Versus the salesman who come in and like one of the guys that did with me, I was managing the hosiery department. I don't want to hear it. Women's hosiery to boot. And he said, hi, I'm Dirty Dan.
I'll just think fire hoses. It would be nice and manly.
Let's say it's fire hose. He says, my name's Dirty Dan Christie. I said, nice. He says, I have a product I think you'll like. I said, what is it? It looks like a little vial of something that you put in your wash machine, and when the woman takes her pantyhose or hose, in those days it was big, and pour it in, they don't mess it up. They come out great. I said, well, it's interesting. He said, I knew it. I said, you knew what? I remember this is New York City, so you got to get that flavor.
Okay.
He said, you got a grill? I said, yeah, I got a grill. I knew it. You got a good TV set? And now I'm starting to get what he's doing. Yeah. I said, yeah, I've got a good TV set. He said, tell you what I'll do. You buy my product? Because Sears was big. You buy my product, put it in your stores. Here's blank tickets. You can go around the world. I said, get your blank out of here. That was another thing you have to do, is know who's selling you and what kind of person they are too.
Right.
And that was not illegal and immoral, but just something that you just don't do.
Right.
Yeah.
So I didn't get the tickets to go around the world.
But he was lining up your yeses, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, remember that? That's when I sold sweepers. I would say, Josh, I'm sure your wife would like to have a clean home. Am I right?
Yes.
And I'm sure she has problems sometimes with the sweeper you have because it gets clogged up and it breaks. And has that ever happened?
Oh, yes.
Now, I have a compact sweeper here that if you buy it from me for $249, then you get me leads. And if you get me leads and I sell that lead, I'm going to give you $50 cash.
Would I like $50 cash?
And that was my next question. would you like $50? Of course I would.
Yeah.
What more is there to do?
Yeah.
So I left the sweeper there. I had this one guy that didn't even have carpeting in his house. And he did.
He's like, we're starting a business together, Dick. You go sell those sweepers.
He had, well, here was the story. He had nothing but linoleum in the whole house. A single guy. And older. And I said, well, you sure you want to buy the sweeper? He said, yeah. He says, I am. I said, well, you don't have any carpeting. And I don't buy it for that. He said, I've always wanted one of these top of the line compact sweepers. And he said, I'll have enough business for you that I'm going to pay for it myself through you. $50 a piece. So it was like $5. I think it was $5.50. Yeah, about that. He did exactly that. He got me enough leads. I gave him enough money back that he paid for his own sweeper. But he still didn't have any carpet.
Well, that was next.
But again, that was what reminded me.
He wanted to be prepared.
You got him kind of going like the shaking their head. Yes, 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 yes. You know,
lining up the yes. Yeah.
What do you see, Dick, in this evolution of technology, and what do you see as something that's getting, or you may be concerned that's getting lost in time as an essential sort of sales element?
Sure. Easy. Hands-on. I think sometimes you get so wrapped up into things that really doesn't explain the product or sell a product, or you assume it is. The best, and I've always done this with being mayor too, if you have further questions, please call. Or if you have further questions, please come down to the office and see me. Door's always open. It's that personal touch, I think, is what I'm seeing. The personal touch that you start to lose. And that's why I was telling you the story about I bought everything in Sears Roebuck in the sporting goods department.
Right.
Because if somebody come in and say, well, what do you think about the Ted Williams 22? I said, it's the best thing you've ever seen in your life. I have one at home. You have one too? And if you relate to almost anything you sell, if it's something except what I had, I didn't buy that for my wife, not for me. If you have one at home, you can relate to the customer and say, yeah, I've already tried that. It's great. Or I've done it. Or this program worked for me. Is there any questions, other questions you have? So I think the personal touch, be involved. A widget is a widget, but you got to know what a widget is.
You mentioned earlier wanting to have a town where you don't have to leave unless you want to.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that you feel are still on the list that you want to see added to Holly Springs? Good
question. More senior housing.
Okay.
Maybe a swimming pool someday, a municipal, but that's a tricky one. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that people don't think about.
Yeah.
Including liability and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that Ting Park you guys made is fantastic.
Ting is wonderful. The baseball team is doing quite well with Salamanders. What's nice about Ting is you go there, you've got AstroTurf on not only the ball field, but also on all the soccer fields, as we do now in Womble Park.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I'm very proud of that. Well, you can play when it rains. If it starts to rain real hard, you can stop and then come back, but it drains within 15, 20 minutes.
Wow.
Big deal. But we've already got that. Convocation Center with basketball courts, more basketball courts. We got some, but not enough. And if you were talking to any of my kids in the Mayor's Youth Advisory Board, which goes from third grade to seniors, there's only one answer to your question.
Mm-hmm.
What don't we have that we need? We need a cookout. A cookout. That's the answer to the question.
All right, cookout, if you're listening, Holly Springs is ready.
Well, it took us about 5 years, 6 years to get the butcher shop in town. he used to come out to the golf course and give you tidbits of stuff that they make as you're waiting to tee off for the next hole.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, is this good? I said, when are you coming to Holly Springs? Someday. They're here now, finally. It's a constant challenge.
Right.
And it's a good challenge. Nothing wrong with that. But I told him last time, we had a meeting last time, I said, if I hear cookout one more time, because that's what, as a matter of fact, we just bought some land across from the high school. It was a farm. It's about, I think it's 67 acres. It's going to be a park.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing that came up during our conversation, because I like to tell them what's coming into town, is, can we get a cookout there, do you think?
Just put it right in the middle of the park.
And it's right across from the high school, and we can come over and have fun. I said, oh, we'll see.
Cookout would kill it across the street from a high school.
Oh, no question in my mind at all.
Because they're very affordable. Yeah. They give you a lot of food. That would be like a high schooler's. They'd be over there all the time.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Goodberries is another challenge of mine. I've been talking to Goodberries for, you have one here, as you know.
Yeah.
Probably 10 years. When you come to Goodberries. So they come every now and then and do for our associates, freebies for Sundays.
Yeah.
And every time they come, they know when they see me coming, they go, I know. When are we coming to Holly Springs? We're still working. So we'll get there. But once we have that, we're done. I mean, there's nothing much left to do.
It says on the Holly Springs NC.us website that the mayor represents the town and serves as its primary spokesperson at events, on official documents, and to the media. Mayors also have ceremonial duties, issuing proclamations, cutting ribbons, and bestowing honorary tributes. Of those mentioned, which would be your favorite?
They're all my favorite because they're all necessary.
Wonderful answer.
Really, I'm serious.
Yeah.
And what you read is very true. If you want to take that to the nth degree and just pick out one thing that some people really recognize, I had a town board member 10 years ago said, "You're our cheerleader." And I thought, well, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. But we're doing proclamations. We're doing that kind of thing. We don't do a whole lot because if you do bunches of proclamations, then it doesn't mean as much. But everything you said, ceremonial, I like to think that when we are at meetings, like I go to the DOT meetings downtown with the Campo, MPO, that kind of thing. I've been doing that since I was there. I'm the representative. I have a backup, Sean McGrath, who's one of our new town board members. I like to think that I represent Holly Springs well. And if I don't, somebody ought to shoot me in where. And they would. And one last thing, and this is so important to me. Why do people love to live in Holly Springs, in my opinion? And so I think it's a great question. It's a friendly town. It's the safest town to live in North Carolina, period, in the statement, documented time and time again. Best place to raise kids, best place, blah, 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 for young families. But it's an attitude the town has. We just plain like each other.
Are there actual springs there?
Yeah, there's two. One that I think is the one that started it, and another one. It was that's how it started, the name, Holly Springs. Holly was the trees around it, the holly trees, and the springs. And down behind the Methodist Church, we're having a Boy Scout deal, which I like to be a part of. And we're cleaning up the mess down in the valley, and it's like rough. And I'm raking it, and getting the leaves up and stuff. And I hit something that's hard. I looked at it, and there's about the size of a horse tank for all of you out there that have heavy race horses. It was the cement that came up from the spring. So I took all the stuff off the top. Bubble, bubble, bubble.
Wow.
I said, I found the spring.
You rediscovered it.
Ponce de Leon is speaking.
Oh, wow.
Our associates work their tails off all day long. Nobody just messes around. And I love them all. It's a hardworking group of people, but it pays dividends because, again, like I say, people just like to live there. Do we ever have a complaint? Oh, sure.
Mm-hmm.
But not very often.
So, as the town's cheerleader, then.
A cheerleader.
Final question.
Sis boom ba.
What advice would you give to the entrepreneurs, the business owners in Holly Springs, or even just any business owner listening today, as far as what are the things that are important right now in 2020 to be successful?
Well, I do this. I don't know if I do it right, but I do it. And that is when somebody comes in and says, I've got this new business, so I say, usually. What do? The very first thing you do is you go across the street to the Chamber of Commerce and become a member of the Chamber of Commerce. Then what you do is set up a ribbon cutting opening. Doesn't have to be that day exactly, but a day. And you will make a little speech to about 45 or 50 of your friendly business members also, telling them what your business is.
And you might just have the mayor show up.
And the mayor obviously said, well, I got to cut the ribbon sometimes, or at least hold it. That's probably the biggest thing to do.
That's great advice.
And then you get all kinds of help. There's another program out there, depending on where you are in the business, but it's mostly for entrepreneurs who are women. It's called Launch Holly Springs. And that's exactly what they do all the time. They've had 3 or 4 graduating classes, usually about, I would say 7 or 8 different. Right. And Beth, you had on before, Beth and Jerry, they graduated from there about a year ago. And again, it takes you all through those steps that you have to do in order to be successful. One thing is be patient. It doesn't work overnight.
Right.
You have to work at this. And sometimes it'll take 6 months, sometimes it'll take a year. But stick with it. If you have a product that's good, let the people know. You need an invitation. Another thing. You need an invitation to the customer to come to your store or business. And so many people forget that part. Recently, a doctor came into town, without mentioning names, and I noticed that his office was usually half empty or even totally empty. I said, how's your business? He said, I don't know what's wrong. He's a good doctor. I said, have you ever advertised? No. Do you think you should? Well, maybe. He advertised in Suburban Living magazine, which every house gets in Holly Springs and Fuquay, and I think Cary too. I'm pretty sure they do. If not, it's Apex. And now his office is usually half full because he sent the invitation out. And so many people forget that part. That seems like such an easy thing to remember, but it isn't.
Right.
They open a business and they open a door and wait for somebody to come in and say, oh, yeah, you got a business here. That's nice. It doesn't work that way. You have to say, if you're going to have a party in your house and you don't invite anybody, but you expect about 12, 15 people, but you never tell them, will they show up at your door? I do not think so.
Right. You're just going to be having a lot of guacamole.
That's right.
It's been so much fun talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate it.
It's been our pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, everybody have a great day.
Same to you.
This show is produced at Podcast Cary, a professional studio making podcasting simple and fun. Located in Vibe Co-working in Cary, North Carolina. Want to start a podcast to create great content for your business and establish yourself as a thought leader in your city? Go to podcastcary.com. Connect with your audience. Grow your brand.
We love making this stuff for you. You can help us out by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts. Get unstuck, tell a better story, and have a good answer to the question, what are you doing today?